Welcome everyone to our Study Abroad podcast series. So, today we have Abhimanyu who did his initial schooling from India, then moved to Oman, and then moved to Hong Kong. So, we'll be covering his journey from India to Hong Kong. So, welcome Abhimanyu.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Vishal. Pleasure to be here.
Sure. So, Abhimanyu, your initial schooling was done in India. So, you studied till 12th grade in India, or you moved to Oman in between the schooling time?
Yep. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Abhimanyu. I am a project manager at a bank in Hong Kong. Initially, yes, to answer your question, I studied in Bangalore. My parents, just moved from Delhi as soon as I was born. So I stayed in Bangalore till I was in about seventh grade. I did my schooling in ICSC syllabus first, and then I moved to Oman. This was related to my father's business, so we just moved countries. And when I went to Oman, I switched to the CBSE curriculum. I continued my schooling until the 12th grade, and around the season of finding universities and things like that, I then decided to move to Hong Kong. So yes, that's a brief overview of my education.
Sure, sure. So when you are deciding to move to Hong Kong from your Indian school at Oman, was Hong Kong the only country you were thinking, or you had few countries in mind? How did you shortlist your country, college, course?
Yep. So there were a few countries in mind actually. Upon discussing with my parents, we essentially shortlisted Singapore and Hong Kong, with a backup option of going back to India as well. So there were three countries in total. How I decided these were basically to stay in Asia. So I looked at the best universities in Asia, and most of them were in either Singapore, Hong Kong, and of course India as well. So that's where my target was in terms of preference.
Sure, sure. And how did you decide your course?
I was always been an enthusiast in technology. So I, would always follow the Apple keynotes, the Samsung events, and things like that. So I just had a general inclination towards technology, and I felt if I had to pursue a career in this field, it would be through a degree in computer science or computer engineering, which is what I did. That kind of changed eventually. So now I'm shifting more towards a finance track, but I still use my motivations in technology in my work as well as in my personal life. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So India, Singapore, and Hong Kong were your initial
Yep.
choices of the colleges. So which all colleges, how many colleges did you apply to in these countries, or you applied to like, I mean, you may have thought like you'll apply to so many, but then you shortlisted maybe five or six. How was that journey?
Yeah, so initially I looked at almost every university. I was going through their websites, what courses they offer, whether they have scholarships, whether they have any aid in terms of finances. And I came down to a short list of about five to six universities, two of which were in Singapore, three in Hong Kong, and a few NITs in India as well. Yeah.
So NITs in India, I mean, you did do JE also, or like, I mean, you did clear JE as well for NIT, or there was some kind of arrangement for, let's say, the NRIs there.
Yep. So it was an arrangement for NRI. So since I stayed in Oman, I was eligible for a scheme called DASA. So this is essentially a scheme where you can apply through your SAT scores instead of doing the JEE. So yes, in my 11th and 12th grade, I was preparing for SATs. Not the general SAT test, but the subject-specific SAT test. So I gave one for math, for physics, and also chemistry. Once you finish these scores, you can submit your best score to the university through the portal. And yeah, the universities would then shortlist you depending on your score and profile. The SATs also helped me in getting offers from Singapore and also Hong Kong. Yes.
Sure, sure. So this SAT score is only applicable to NIT or some IIT as well?
No, this SAT score is not applicable for IITs. This is only applicable for NITs. For IIT, you would have to go through the general track of preparing for JEEs and securing a high rank. Yep.
Okay, okay, sure, sure, sure. I think this DASA thing was there maybe in IITs long back, but probably they
I see.
scrapped it. Probably some time.
Yeah.
Like in my time, I
I'm
could
not
see
aware if
DASA.
it's still there now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they
No, no,
scrapped
because
it
I
for
when I
NITs as
studied,
well.
I also studied at IIT KGP. So that time we had few DASA people.
Okay.
The name you said, so it
Okay.
did
Okay.
linger in my brain that okay, we did had some DASA thing. But I think now maybe they have changed some rule here and there, and only NITs have this DASA quota kind of thing.
Yep. Okay. That's
Sure,
that's
sure.
good to know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's good to know for me also, from you, both sides. Sure,
Yes.
sure. So, you applied to all these colleges. So, which were the colleges in Singapore you applied to? Two colleges that you are mentioning.
Yes, so I applied to NUS, the National University of Singapore, and also NTU, Nanyang Technology University. I did receive an offer from NTU, but I eventually chose to come to Hong Kong, which is because of my scholarship arrangement with City University of Hong Kong.
Okay, okay, sure, sure. So, in Hong Kong, you said you applied to three universities, I guess, right?
Yep.
So, you applied to these three, and did you get scholarship from some of them? What was the kind of scholarship, like partial, full, tuition fee, living cost? How was the breakdown of the scholarship?
Yes, so I'll give you a summary. I got offers from Singapore, from NTU, and I also received offers from HKU and City University of Hong Kong, or CityU, what we like to call it, in Hong Kong. Basically, the offers were more or less the same, but only CityU was offering me a scholarship, which was a full scholarship. HKU offered me a scholarship, which was a partial one, so 50% of my tuition fee. The universities in Singapore did not offer any scholarship, but they did give me an offer. Eventually, I decided to come to City University because the course which I was doing came under the electrical engineering department of the university. And essentially, because of the scholarship and also the high ranking of this department in Asia, I thought that, okay, we should probably zero in on this. Uh,
Hello.
oh,
Yeah, I
sorry,
think that
think I
got
got cut off there.
disconnected. I'll ask you the question again then. Okay. Yeah, the
Sure.
scholarship question we'll repeat it. We'll edit this part. So, Abhimanyu,
Sure.
regarding the scholarship, could you just throw some light on what kind of scholarship you received from which college?
Yes. So, as I said earlier, I applied in Singapore, Hong Kong, as well as India. I received scholarship offers mainly from Hong Kong. So these were from City University of Hong Kong and also HKU, the University of Hong Kong. The scholarship I received from HKU was 50% of my tuition fee. And the course was also similar to what I was doing in CityU. But in CityU, I was getting 100% scholarship. And there were more opportunities in CityU to get further scholarship, be it through participating in your accommodation events, things like that, to kind of subsidize your living costs as well. That, along with the fact that the department which offered the course I was doing was highly ranked in Asia. So I thought, okay, we can zero in on City University for the same. So yeah, I received a scholarship for my tuition, which was 100% tuition fee. And further on, while I was in the university, I was able to get a scholarship for my living expenses as well.
Okay, okay. So you are like almost just spending on little bit here and there, pocket money, food, etc.
Yes, so I was just managing my food and my travel between places in Hong Kong. Yep,
Correct, correct, which is almost, I think, 80 to 90% of the cost covered. It's just 10-20% you are spending by yourself.
yep, I would agree. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So, and how did you apply for this additional scholarship that you said that, once you receive this tuition scholarship. The other scholarship you applied after coming to the university, right? So what is the process to apply to this? Like, is there any criteria? Who gets it? Who doesn't get it? Any tips?
So, the university offers accommodation in their residence complex, and every building is called a hall. So, I was in one of the halls in the resident complex, and my hall offered, a chance to get this further scholarship. So, in my first year of university, I essentially participated in a lot of the events which the hall was hosting. I would, take the initiative to even host some of these events and, kind of get people involved in more of these events and activities. Ultimately, there is a scoring system where you can apply for a scholarship, and the scoring system judges the initiative you have taken in terms of participation as well as hosting of these events and how you're contributing to the overall hall environment. So I was above the par line for that, and I was able to get a scholarship for that. So this was the criteria essentially.
So this scholarship that you get is you pay the accommodation fee and then it gets refunded as a stipend. Is it like that?
Basically, yes. So this scholarship is not applicable for entry level students, so like first year students. This would be applicable further on. So for my second year of university, for one semester, I did not have to pay any fee. That was covered already. And I further received a stipend which would almost cover the second semester as well. And that carried on for another year. So basically, that's how the scheme works.
Sure, sure. And the application process for these universities required some tests to be cleared. Which were those?
So for City U, I just had to pass my CBSE exam, and I had to get a minimum grade of 85% or above to keep my offer. So I applied, I think, in October or November the previous year, and I got my offer by January or February, if I'm not wrong. And it was a conditional offer stating that, okay, your profile is fine, your predicted grades are good. So if you are able to match those predicted grades, the offer is valid. Also, if you match these predicted grades, you will also get a scholarship offer, and all the terms and conditions were outlined earlier on. So that was the first hurdle I had to cross. Further, I had to also complete an IELTS or a TOEFL exam. So this is usually not applicable for people who are, studying English in their schools. So people who do the IB curriculum or the O levels, or A level, sorry, they don't have to write this exam. But for CBSE students, this exam is applicable. So I had to do the exam, and once I passed it, I just forwarded my certificate to the university. Apart from that, for my applications to Singapore, I did have to submit my SAT scores as well, and that is a mandatory submission. So it's not optional like some universities have it.
So it's SAT, IELTS, and some cutoff percentage in your 12th.
Yeah, for all the applications, but for City U, it was just the CBSE board results and the IELTS exam.
Sure, sure. I mean, these three are will be like a generic things to
Yeah,
uh, clear, for a 12th grader to get into some universities, some criteria like this.
definitely.
Sure. And the accommodation in Hong Kong, you booked. How did you find the accommodation and how did you book the accommodation initially, like when you were in Oman?
So as I said, the accommodation is provided by the university. So once you have a firm offer with everything checked out, you get access to your city university email. And in the emails, they forward you certain applications for this residence accommodation. I filled out the form and it was pretty straightforward actually. It didn't take much time. They gave me a confirmation, I think within 2 weeks, that okay, you will be onboarded. And yeah, after that, it was pretty straightforward. I knew I had, the accommodation. It's pretty similar to the hostel situation in India. So if you're in a university, you can apply for a hostel and then it goes forward from there.
So it's an optional thing that you can apply to, or is it a mandatory that you have to take this university accommodation?
No, it's definitely optional because there are a lot of local students from Hong Kong who prefer to stay with their family. So they do not opt for the accommodation. Also, some students might prefer to live in a co-living space, with students from other universities, or they might want to stay somewhere which is, or somewhere with, a better room, a bigger room, things like that. So it depends on the student's preference. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So the accommodation on campus, the hostel, let's say, and versus the accommodation outside if you rent, the cost is very similar or cost is like, very, very different.
No, the cost is drastically different. The residence accommodation provided by the university is much cheaper. It would be equivalent to 1 month's rent for the entire semester. So one semester's fee is equivalent to 1 month's rent if you stay outside. So it's definitely cheaper, but the catch here is that you only get this accommodation for 2 years. So if you are applying in your first year, you might get the accommodation only for first year and your second year, after which you have to, prove that you have taken the initiative to, participate in a lot of hall events, inter-hall events. There's a sports day kind of thing where you have to, participate in either football, basketball, track and field events. So each of these events, the participation has a point score. If you come up as a winner, there is another, bonus point. So all of these points get tabulated at the end of the year. And if you are within the top 10 by the end of your second year, you get forwarded to get the accommodation for your third year. For the third year, there is again another option where if you perform well, you can stay for your fourth year as well. But for this, there is only one slot available, and I think there are around 10 people who are competing with you for that one spot. I was lucky enough to get that one spot in my final year, so I stayed for the entire 4 years in the residence accommodation.
So you are like the topper of the accommodation events.
Yeah.
No, it's a good incentive, for the people. Like, okay, if you do all this, then you can stay all 4 years. So everyone is going to really compete for that one spot. Although people will not get that one spot, but there will be a lot of personality development, a lot of knowledge development, and things like that from the very residential point of view, and bonding with each other, etc. So I guess you are quite bonded with all your hostel residents probably because you were the topper, that one person in the fourth year.
Yeah. So this is not so this one spot is available per hall. So if there are around 10, 11 halls in the complex, so 11 international third year students get a return offer to stay for their final year. That being said, this is not the only avenue where you can continue to stay in the residence accommodation. There are more avenues. So you can also apply to become an RT, which is a residence tutor. For this, it might be a better prospect, in fact, because you get to stay for free. You are paid to do this or to function as this role of an RT. The only catch here is that you have to essentially mentor a lot of the students, and you have to, take out some time to basically hold some responsibilities. Like you might have to manage the finances, you might have to manage the return process, you might have to manage, how you interact with other halls, things like that. So and also another benefit of the RT route is that you get a separate room on your own, so you're not sharing a room with someone. So yeah, there are definitely more avenues. I just prefer to continue staying with my roommate and try to get that one spot which was available. Yeah.
So do you also have some kind of inter-hostel event, like some competition where one hostel emerges as the winner and the others become like runner-up or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. So there is a lot of these events are inter-hall actually. Like the sports day event I mentioned earlier. This is an inter-hall event. It goes throughout the year. So initially there might be the track and field events, and you have a ranking system. Then we might go to badminton. Then there was one very unique one. It was called crate climbing. So you initially just stack crates and you reach you see who has the highest stack. So very fun and nice initiatives taken by the university to get people involved. Some might say it is quirky, but at the same time, you get to, spend time with different halls, people from different backgrounds. A lot of exchange students are also taking part in these. This is an avenue for them to, come in touch with a lot of people staying in the residence. So yeah, it's a good initiative in my opinion,
Sure.
and there are definitely a lot of inter-hall events in that sense.
So this 11 hostels you mentioned, so each hostel could accommodate how many people?
Oh, that's tough. You might have, let's say, 10 to 11 floors with 16 to 18 people. So let's just say 200 people times 11.
Okay,
That would be
2200.
2,000 to 2,500 students. Yeah.
So out of this 2000, 2500 students who are, let's say, living in the hostel, or let's say your whole college, what percentage of students are actually from outside Hong Kong, like the international student versus the local student? What would be like the rough percentage?
So if we're talking purely the residence accommodation, then the percentage is much higher. So a lot of the local students prefer to stay with their families. So I would say around 20 to 30% in the residence accommodation are international students. But when it comes to the university itself, I would say that that percentage goes much lower. Yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. And how was your visa process? Was it straightforward? Any hiccups that happened for your case?
No, it was pretty straightforward actually. So you apply through the university for your visa. It's a very straightforward process. Everything is outlined from the beginning. They, in fact, tell you to apply much in advance, so that if there is anything which is flagged or there might be some clarification needed, it happens much in advance. So by the time the semester starts, you're, all set for your visa. Yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. And when you were flying from Oman, Muscat to Hong Kong, did you fly alone or you had like a bunch of people coming together?
Actually, my family decided to fly with me. So they wanted to see the country, they wanted to see how I was living, and things like that. So I traveled with my family. It was from Oman, there is no direct flight, so I had to come via Bangkok. Um, One stopover, and it was around 9 to 10 hours of a journey, which is not bad actually, considering that, you're just sleeping most of the time in the flight. So yeah, it was a pretty straightforward process. Yeah.
Sure, sure. And your parents came, so they had like a separate accommodation booked, like a hotel or something, or the university had some kind of guest house for them?
The university does offer a guest house service, but my parents decided to just stay in a hotel. They wanted to also sightsee and go around Hong Kong. So yeah, the hotel was what they did.
So, so this was all first time for all of you to coming to Hong Kong?
Yeah, it was the first time for all of us to come to Hong Kong. We had been through layovers before, but we hadn't come and seen the city as such.
Sure, sure, sure. So you came like how many days before your classes were starting? Like what was the gap like?
So I came, I think, 4 days before my first day of university. So essentially, they tell you when you would be able to check into your room at your residence complex. And so, yeah, we decided to come a few days before so that we could, spend some time together, and then I could go and stay in the residence accommodation.
Sure, sure. So this cooking, cleaning, laundry, etc. For your case, did you had to do some of this, or it was all provided by the hostel itself?
Okay, so there are two ways you can look at it. So, firstly, the residence accommodation does have a weekly cleaning service. So, one of the helpers would come and clean the bathroom. In terms of the room, like you have to manage that on your own. So, it's between you and your roommate to see how you want to manage that. Um, Cooking is also something which you can look at it in two ways. So either you cook on your own, or you could. There are a lot of canteens available in the university. So one is inside the residence accommodation. It's pretty cheap food, but a lot of people still prefer to cook on their own. There's also an Indian kebab shop at the university. So for students like me who are from Indian origin, we would prefer to go there. Yeah, in terms of laundry, the each hall has a floor or an area where you can go and use the washing machines to do your laundry. They also have a dryer service. The only thing is you have to pay around 5 Hong Kong dollars for each use. So that's something you need to consider in advance as well.
Sure, sure. And what about the part-time job internships that you did? I think you mentioned one you did for the accommodation part. Apart from that, did you do any other internship or part-time job?
Yeah, so at the university, there are a lot of jobs available in terms of, just applying yourself to do the job. So you could work in the library, you could also help, in some research with any professor. A lot of avenues available. I decided to help a professor in terms of research. So in my second and third year, I was doing that. Also, my course and in fact, a few other courses at the university, they have a placement offer as well, where you can do an internship while you're studying as well. So I opted for this in my final year, where I worked with an insurance company as a data analyst, and I worked for about 9 to 10 months while managing my courses and my final year project as well.
Sure, sure. And after you graduated from your bachelor's, you decided to also do masters from Hong Kong. So during
Yeah.
that time, did you consider any other country, any other option, any other college apart from, let's say, the local Hong Kong colleges?
Well, I personally did not because I wanted to get the permanent resident card for Hong Kong. And to do that, you might have to stay for 7 years. So 4 years of my university, I was working for 1 year in between, and now I'm doing my master's. I applied to Hong Kong University for my master's. It's a course in financial technology and data analytics. The main motivation for this was that while staying in Hong Kong, it's very beneficial to know more about finance. And also, this course was a part-time course, so I would not have to take a break from working. I could continue to build my work experience and at the same time pursue this degree. So yeah, I decided to do my master's here. I did not, I did look at other countries, but I zeroed in on Hong Kong because all of the things were aligning. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So because of this part-time thing only, I think Hong Kong was the preferred route anyways. You had a full-time job
Yeah.
and then you're doing this part-time study. So what are your
Yeah.
future goals with all this? I think you mentioned a bit anyways that you want to get the residency. Apart from that,
Yeah, so I do want to secure a permanent resident card for Hong Kong. The main motivation for that is, wherever life takes me in the future, if I do want to come back to Hong Kong, where I did my undergrad and now my master's, I would have that option. It's just a thing for job security. And yeah, I guess my future plan would be to just continue working in Hong Kong for a few years and see where my jobs take me.
sure, sure. So coming to the very last question, Abhimanyu. So what advice would you give to younger yourself or people, who are in school, let's say, and considering going Hong Kong or any other country for that matter for the abroad dream?
Well, I would say definitely enjoy the process because um, when I look back at those times, it feels like, like at the time I felt like, oh, this is so stressful and I have to get into university and all of that. But looking back at it, I quite, I remember it with a smile on my face. So definitely enjoy the process. Give yourself as much exposure as you can. I think the formative years of your life, especially the university life, are where you should experiment, try and give yourself exposure to every scenario. You might have a way or a mindset in your head of, okay, this is how I think, this is how I do. Uh, Try to break that, try to, give yourself as much experience and exposure as you can. That's kind of what I tried to do in my undergrad, especially where I was just trying a lot of things. I was working, in different aspects. So being a computer science student, I was working for marketing. I was also doing, event management, things like that. Just give yourself exposure. So my main advice would be, yeah, just keep your mindset open.
Sure, sure. And any advice in terms of usage of LinkedIn? We also found each other through LinkedIn. So what advice would you give to younger people on usage of LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would say get on there as soon as you can. Try to establish yourself there. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool when it comes to getting in touch with people and finding people with similar interests or where you want to be in life. So I, in fact, found a few people who I look up to in terms of careers, and I have a good rapport with them. So definitely try LinkedIn. It's one of the more helpful tools in terms of your career and professional experience. Try to leverage the tools there in terms of your jobs, your internships. Just post whatever achievement you can over there. Try to get more eyes on you. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Abhimanyu, thank you very much for all these tips and sharing your experience. And we hope our audience would have learned something and got motivated to do things by their own. So thank you, Abhimanyu. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Vishal, and thank you so much for hosting this.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.